Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. Your host, a behavioral scientist and bachelor, talks to leading experts and successful singles about living solo and living well. Travel more, make things, sleep in when you want to. Here's the playbook for the person who is unapologetically unattached. Now, please welcome Dr. Peter McGraw.
Welcome back. Before we get started, I want you to know that I'm going to be hosting some live Zoom meetups for the Solo community. If you want to find out when they're happening, please sign up for the community on the Solo podcast page at petermcgraw.org. That is the Solo podcast page at petermcgraw.org. And if you haven't yet, please rate, review, and tell your single friends about the podcast. This episode is a follow-up to a previous episode with Kim Kessler, where we talked about the hero's journey. At the end of that episode, Kim tells me that there is a lesser-known story structure that better matches the growth that singles have as they escape human domestication. We discuss the model, which has the unfortunate name of The Virgin's Promise, and we relate it to well-known stories such as Cinderella, Frozen, Billy Elliot, and even Rocky. If you stick around to the end, Kim, who's married with children, talks about how non-solos can support their solo friends and family. I hope you enjoy the episode. Let's get started. Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Kimberly Kessler. Kimberly is a writer, editor, and StoryGrid certified editor. She appeared previously on the episode, Are You the Hero in the Story of Your Life? Welcome, Kim.
Hi. Thanks for having me back.
Kim, I have been so excited to do this episode. We actually set it up right afterwards, and you were like, how about Wednesday? And Wednesday was like 6 days away. And I was like, okay. So first of all, if you were listening to this one, it would help to listen to the previous one, but again, it's not in the same way. It's not necessary to watch The Matrix to understand the hero's journey.
Yes.
It's not necessary to listen to the previous episode. So why, you're my first return guest.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So here's why you're back, because while I know enough about the hero's journey to be dangerous, I know nothing about this little nugget you dropped at like hour 2 of the last podcast that we were on.
That's how you get yourself back, folks.
Talk about a cliffhanger. So we are here today to talk about The Virgin's Promise, which is an alternative or complementary structure to the hero's journey. And you made an argument, this is a little bit of fairy dust that you sprinkled, that you said is a better fit. It's actually a better model for the solo person to think about his or her life.
Yes, absolutely. So what I love about The Virgin's Promise and why I think it's such a great fit, and we'll get into all the nitty gritty, but because The Virgin's Promise is all about becoming the person that you already are inside, right? So it's the person that like you're made to be, and it's like all the goodness is already in there, but because of, social conventions and other, the outside world around you is putting constraints on you and telling you to conform to what they want you to be so that they feel more comfortable, or that you're meeting their needs the way that they feel, like you're in their sort of idealistic way that they think the world should be. It's keeping you from being able to manifest your gift, right? Your magic, right? So just, to me, just that alone is like, that's the solo person's problem, right? Is that everybody around them wants them to conform to the way that they see that they should live their lives, but that's not what they're being called to do.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so why don't we step back with that big idea looming, and let's just recap the hero's journey. So just in the meantime, just to let you know, I went to a used bookstore out in the desert, like it's not supposed to be open, but Joe, the guy who co-owns it with his wife, is there from 10 to noon every day with his little doggie with his face mask on. And
the dog or Joe? Which one has
has the face mask. And I called him and said, hey, I'll be there at, Tuesday or Wednesday at 10 a.m. Is that okay? Yeah, that's sure. I said, I'll wear my mask. And I was like, I just got to peruse. I had the whole place to myself.
Oh, it's the best feeling. It's just the best.
And it is an old school bookstore. Yeah. I mean, like, it was funny. It was funny. Like, this is, he was sort of showing me around, and he's like, this is the mythology section, right? And he pulls out a book. He goes, that's not supposed to be there. And I'm like, what is it? And he goes, it's the Quran. And I said, I think someone
was being an asshole.
Exactly. Yes. That's what I said to him, basically. And he agreed.
Yes.
But in that section, I found this book, Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, with Bill Moyers, which is a long interview between the two of them.
Yes.
Which is a really outstanding book. So I've been reading up on it in the meantime. And so why don't, if you don't mind, just to recap, in case someone hasn't listened to the previous episode, what exactly, if you could, the kind of 10,000 foot view of the hero's journey built out of, it's, what is it? The hero of 1,000 faces? A hero with 1,000 faces? The hero with
1,000 faces. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So Joseph Campbell, it's really his, seminary work, right, that he did for his lifetime. And he looked across all of the myths of all the different cultures and all these different time periods, and he looked at similarities. What do they have in common? And he found these points that coincided. And so you have, mythical stories from India and mythical stories from, Native Americans and Norse mythology and all of these different things, right, from all kinds of time spans. And you come up with the monomyth, right, which boils down to, that's what we call now the hero's journey. And it has this an archetypical progression, right? From your ordinary world, you're being called to adventure, and you refuse that call because people don't like change. So we're like, nope, I don't want to change. And then until you accept the call, you're going to meet a guide, you're going to be tested, you're going to have to face an ordeal, good things happen, bad things happen, until ultimately you have an epiphany, the reward, the road back, and this final battle to where you defeat, the change that you've been trying not to make, you make, and you're able to defeat this, this external antagonist, and you return home with this elixir that people need that makes the world better. And so what I love about the hero's journey is that it is, unanimous, right? Like, it's something that all of these cultures, even though they're completely separate from one another, maybe, it's not like they're not communicating, but because we're humans, right? And because our brains of the Homo sapien processes information in a certain way, and nobody wants to change no matter when you were born or where you lived, like, we're all like, I don't wanna. And so we create these stories, and we've all settled on this framework to help us make sense of, what do I do when something's forcing me to change and I don't want to? How do I cope with that? And that's what the hero's journey does. It shows us how we cope with change.
And so it's, it's obviously it's fun to dissect stories, whether it be Gilgamesh or The Matrix, or as you did in the bonus material, A Christmas Carol or Avatar from it. But it also is a nice model for real life. And
absolutely.
So I wanted to talk to you about it because I was I was interested. I was saying the pandemic is a call to action, and I was thinking about the sort of solo's journey as a hero's journey, perhaps. And then you said to me, I think there's a better model. And one of the things that even comes up in the book that I was reading is how the hero's journey leans masculine.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, I mean, it doesn't have to be, the protagonist doesn't need to be a man.
Right.
Or anything. But it leans sort of stereotypically male or masculine.
Right. It's like archetypical, right? It's like it's a model for masculinity, and it's a model for the way we interpret that journey, right? So it's really, it's all this, we're putting meaning on it, right? And we're interpreting it that way. And so just like how the hero's journey could be for men or women, it's that kind of journey. The Virgin's Promise, which, is a fairly unfortunate name, but it can be for men or women, but it's really about, it's that kind of inward journey as opposed to an outward journey.
Yeah. And I think some of this is, and again, as I say, lean, stereotypical, I want to be careful about the language that I use, because some of it is the nature of human history put men in the storytelling position generally. And so because you had male storytellers, the stories leaned male and masculine in that sense. And only now, more recently in the last 100 years, have you started to see, obviously, female writers. And I'm actually I have a very fun podcast planned about people who should never have married.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear that one, honestly. I'm really intrigued by it.
And you can argue is that there were in the last 100 years especially, a lot of very promising female authors' careers cut down by marriage.
Yeah.
And which is unfortunate. And so yeah, I agree with you that the Virgin's Promise is poorly named. I think that the title of this podcast is going to be ... The Solo's Promise.
There you go. The Solo's Promise.
Or the Single's Promise. Which of those two do you like more?
I like Solo better. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what the heck happens what is the Virgin's Promise? Where did it come about?
Yeah.
Why have I never heard of it?
Yeah. Okay. So it's fairly recent just in terms of it being, codified and brought to the forefront, right? But so just as like Joseph Campbell, he went looking at myths, right? The Virgin's Promise you'll see represented more in fairy tales, right? Which are different. It's not something that Joseph Campbell looked at when he was doing his work. And so there is go ahead. You had a face.
We have videos. We have videos, so you can saw me make a gesture.
I'm picking up the cues. What's up?
Well, you could imagine what happened is, Campbell overlooked fairy tales because it may not have fit his model very well.
Right.
So there's this confirmation bias in the sciences, in art, in history, in politics, and everything, where we look for confirmatory evidence. And we have a tendency to either ignore or discount disconfirmatory evidence.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if Campbell noticed a group of stories that didn't fit very well, and he just sort of looked away.
Well, and what's interesting is and I think this is probably where, if we're going to talk about some stories as we go, I'll mention some that people will know and have heard of and should go watch again and see if it feels different with this lens. But it's like you could shoehorn them in, right? Because it's because you're still talking about a human brain processing change. So it's like, it's not that different in terms of, we still start in one place, we descend into another place. We still have a lot of these same sort of markers, but they're different enough that it's important to point out the difference, right? Because in the Virgin's Promise, you don't have someone leaving on a journey. They stay home, right? They're like in their place that they've always been, right? They're in this dependent world. So if you imagine,
hold on. We have to stop here because I think we're missing the space before that, right? Okay.
Before the what?
Or what? I don't even know enough to know what that means.
Okay.
When you say they stay in their place.
Okay. So as opposed to, so the ordinary world of the hero, let's look at the hero's journey, right? You start out in your ordinary world, you get a call to action, and then you leave to go to the extraordinary world, right? You're actually leaving a physical location to go somewhere new. So the Virgin in the Virgin's Promise begins instead of ordinary, it's dependent, right? she is dependent on them, they are dependent on her. And so rather when there's a call to action, or there's a prompt of like, oh, I could do something, rather than leaving, they stay where they are. They're still in the dependent world, but they go into the secret world, and it's happening in the same physical location, right, that they're in. They're still at home, they're still, mopping the floors, making dinner, and taking care of babies, but they have a secret world that's happening where they're getting to explore this inner beauty and inner magic that they have, that they're doing, but they're keeping it a secret from those around them that would cry foul if they knew, right? So they're still in the same physical location. They don't leave to go somewhere else. These are stories that are taking place in the setting in which, not always, but we're just talking archetypically, right? They're taking place in the setting where this character has been and always will be, right?
Okay. So for example, Dorothy in Wizard of Oz.
Right. Dorothy leaves home, right? Yes. So
you're not in Kansas anymore.
Right. You are exactly. That's such a perfect, what's funny, sort of funny, at least to me, is that her house actually goes with her, right? So you're like, well, but she literally goes from Kansas, ordinary world, to an extraordinary world. And the thing about Dorothy is her story is, she has a lot to learn, right, about what it means to come home. Like, so when she comes home at the end, she's like, oh, there's no place like home. So she gets to learn a lesson about how powerful, it is to be there and what she's grateful for and all of these things. But so it's not really about her changing from the inside out. It's as much as her looking at her outside world differently.
Got it.
Subtle shifts, but man, to a protagonist living one of those, it makes all the difference, right? To really have the nuance there is really empowering. So
what would be an example of the Virgin's Promise where someone stays home? Mm-hmm. Just to give you the starting point, just to give people an idea.
Yeah. So Cinderella is like the classic.
Okay.
Kind of the classic fairy tale. She's her material survival and protection all relies on, these other people, right? So you can see the dependence. She's dependent on her evil, wicked stepmother to provide for her and feed her and clothe her and not kick her out of the house, right? But they're also dependent on her to cook and clean and do all these crappy things that they don't want to do. So they are dependent on one another. And Cinderella doesn't leave home, right? She goes to a ball, but for the most part, her story is taking place. She's at home. She doesn't go on a magical journey somewhere else, right? The fairy godmother shows up in her backyard. So everything's really happening in her, domestic setting, right? So that's kind of the classic example would just be to think about Cinderella being stuck, not getting to shine her own, her own light. So
okay.
Mm-hmm. So Joseph Campbell, he's the one who, gets the hero's journey all together and so becomes this, this part of our collective subconscious now, right? It's basically giving names to the things that we've already all known because they're part of us. And so then more recently in 2011, Kim Hudson wrote a book. And she's the one who coined the phrase, the Virgin's Promise. And her book is titled The Virgin's Promise, Writing Stories of Feminine, Creative, Spiritual, and Sexual Awakening. And so she's the one that actually did the work of looking at these stories that Joseph Campbell didn't include. So she looked at fairy tales. She went through all these different things and found these other archetypical markers, these little moments within the story and how they're actually kind of the inverse of the hero's journey, right? So, and so the hero and the virgin are very much, polar opposites on the same scale. Like they're the yin and yang, like they're connected. They're like two sides of the same whole, right? And certainly in a person's life, you probably experience both at different times and maybe multiple times, right? So it just kind of depends on what moment of your life are you looking at through this lens of a story. So they really do center around, feminine or female characters or the female archetype of a character. And the name Virgin itself is really, it's an archetype name, right? It doesn't really have anything to do with whether or not you have a hymen, okay? It has to do with being independent, right? A virgin is someone who needs no one. She is whole as she is. She is pure and whole and needs nothing to be completed. So so when we say the virgin's promise, it's the promise of the individual that exists inside of them, that's already there, that again is being smothered by this dependent world around them.
I see. Yeah. So promise is in potential, not
Yes.
promise is in I swear an oath.
Exactly. Yes.
I see. Boy, it's an unfortunate modern name.
It is. It really
Especially
is.
for 2011.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting that this is such a recent development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's super fascinating. All right, so Campbell overlooked this set of stories. Many of them are fairy tales, and it sounds like many of them have female protagonists.
Yeah,
that's there. But really, this is about someone who's trapped in a dependent world and has potential, and it's about her or his struggle. I'm assuming struggle is involved because change is going to be involved.
Yeah, so it's really like, I mean, you can look at, so let's bring up a couple story examples. So if I'm not sure if, if these are ones you've seen, or hopefully someone in the listening audience will have seen them. Like Billy Elliot is a great example of a virgin's promise story, right? So you've got this young kid, he lives in this super blue collar town, and he doesn't want to do boxing like his dad wants him to do, right? He wants to dance, and he's freaking talented, right? But the kind of this blue collar world around him says that if you're a boy and you're dancing, you must be gay, right? Like it's this stereotype. It's like they're putting this pressure on him, and they don't, his older brother and his dad don't want him to do this. They want him, and so it's just that kind of thing. So he goes into a secret world. He takes ballet lessons instead of boxing. He lies to his dad about it. Like there's all this stuff that he goes through. And so if we walk through, I'll just give you kind of the quick overview, right? Of just kind of, if you think about those moments on the hero's journey, the virgin's promise has its own moments, right? So the dependent world, and what you're going to see is a price of conformity, right? So we're going to see the loss that someone's going through because they're not able to express themselves fully, right? There will be, rather than a call to action or an inciting incident, there will be an opportunity to shine. So something where they're able to kind of flex their muscles a little bit and kind of show up the way that they would normally. And that kind of, it's kind of like, are you going to do this temporarily, or are you going to just do it because you won't get caught? Like, but it's like, they're not, it's like they'll tease it, right? They might play with it a little bit, but they're not really embracing it fully there because, they're going to go into the secret world, right? They're not just going to show up in everything that they are. They're just going to dabble, right?
So what is that in Cinderella? Do you remember?
So in Cinderella, I'd probably relate it to her singing, right? Okay, I'm going to think of the Disney version, right, in my head.
That's fine.
So when she is, so a couple different things come to mind. Like on the one hand, she's so kind, right? Like she is kind, even though everyone around her is absolutely awful and they treat her terribly, right? So she does a lot of different things. Like she's scrubbing the floors and she's singing and she's finding joy in like being able to, have vision for the future despite these current circumstances. She knows how to, she makes a beautiful dress for herself, right? Like she's crafty, whether she's got little mice friends or whatever, but like she makes her own dress out of scraps, right? So she's a person who has vision to see beyond what is in front of her, right? She's dreaming of the future, of a someday when she's not stuck here, and she's able to take these throwaway items. We've got, a sash here or pearls there, and she can take those and make her own dress that the sisters hate so much that they totally pull apart, right? They they keep her down, right? So I would say probably her, just that different aspect of her being able to do that would be her shining.
Got it. I see. That's neat. Now, in our previous podcast, we had talked about Rocky, and you were saying how. So it seemed like what makes sense now is you could shoehorn Rocky into the hero's journey,
right?
But your argument is that it's a better virgin's promise,
right? Exactly. So for Rocky, he's been in this world that is really telling him that winning is what matters. It's really about winning. And so in order for him to do that, we see that he fights people who are not worthy opponents for him, right? He's actually way more talented than he's allowing himself to show. And so in order to win, right, he fights people that aren't as good as him and all these different things. And so his opportunity to shine comes later in the story than maybe we would typically see. But he definitely gets that opportunity to fight Creed, right? There's an opportunity there. And, they would have had to see that he was doing well enough in the first place to show up on their radar, like, well, who's a local guy? Like, let's, and so there's things like that come up. And so, the fact that he's this local underdog. And so it's, the opportunity to shine can be, whether it's directed by fate, or it's wish fulfillment, or actively pursued by them. Sometimes it's a response to someone else in need. There's all these different little nuances depending on the story. So in this case, Creed needs someone to fight, and he wants a local guy, and Rocky is a well-known enough name. And they know that they know that his potential, right? Like, even though he's been losing out on fights, or, he's been fighting bums and he's been being a bum, or he's whatever it is he's doing, he's well-known enough and has enough potential that they think it's possible for him to do this. So it's really it's almost like being called up to the majors, right? Like, you have this opportunity to shine, and whether it's something you're doing for yourself or someone else is doing it, saying like, hey, why don't you come shine for a minute? It's still different than let's leave and go somewhere, right? It's like, it's just different.
Yeah. I'm going to digress for a moment. There's, I think it ended up being a Disney movie, of course, but, I remember hearing like it was like an NPR interview. I'll try to find it and put in the exhibits. The story of this guy who, he had played baseball as a younger guy, had hurt his arm, had like a surgery or something like that. And now he was getting pretty old. Like, he was like in his 30s or something like that.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting a chance there was some sort of open tryout or something for the Tampa Bay Rays. And you know what it was? He was coaching a high school baseball team, and he made an agreement, like, if the team won the championship or whatever, he was going to go to the tryouts, right? Because he would pitch batting practice, and none of the kids could hit him off of batting practice. I don't have all the details right.
It's The Rookie. The movie's The Rookie. It's based on Jim Morris. And
yes.
What's this guy's name?
I know who you're talking about. He's a little old in the tooth now, but
yeah.
So by the way, the guy wrote a book. The book's really poorly written. It's terrible. But the NPR story, I remember crying listening to it. And he basically, it's a virgin's promise, because he's coaching this baseball team. He's a good guy. And, the team wins, of course, and he goes to this tryout, and he's like up on the mound, and he's, he's throwing the ball, and he describes the guy with the radar gun behind the plate. And the guy looks at the thing, and he starts banging on the side of the radar gun.
Yeah.
Like, this must be broken, because the guy's throwing heat. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
And he ends up making the team.
Yeah.
And becoming a professional baseball player. I mean, like, it's for a terrible team and whatever, but whatever. I mean,
right?
He tells the story about how he was like he was the first one to the ballpark every morning. He was the last one to leave. Like, he just sucked the marrow out of that experience for the short period of time that he was a baseball player. And I just remember like crying in my car or something.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. Dennis Quaid is the actor.
Yes.
You're welcome. I can't let things like that stand. They drive me nuts. Yeah. Okay. So that's totally what we're talking about. There's this potential in them. And you can just imagine, the people maybe in Jim Morris's family that are like, no, man, please, you're going to embarrass yourself. Don't do it. Don't do it. Like, the
you're
people
going to go to a tryout. Come on.
Right. And
yeah.
It's because it makes them uncomfortable and they can't handle it. And so it's really that, right? Where I think oftentimes in the hero's journey, it's more people are trying to get them to go and they're more reluctant, right? So it's almost like in a Virgin's Promise story, if you had people just encouraging them and like saying like, you know what, you do you go do the thing that you need, like, again, the story would be over in 2 seconds. Yes. But and so it just shows you like, what do people actually need? They need people who are just saying, so what do you got in there? What do you want to do? And helping them become that thing, right?
Yeah. We have to bring this up now, I think, at this stage, because you had said the Virgin's Promise is a better model for the solo.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if someone's listening, it's already clicking, I'm sure. Right. Which is, there are, so I'm reading a book right now. I'm about halfway through, called Convenience Store Woman.
Okay.
Or The Convenience Store Woman, or A Convenience Store Woman. It's a story about a Japanese woman. So Japanese writers, written in English. Maybe it's been translated. It probably has been translated, of course. But I'm reading the English because that's the only language I can speak. So in it, the story is about this young, no longer young woman, but she was a young woman. She took a job at a convenience store. Now, 18 years later, she still works there.
Yes. And
she's single. She's solo. And but she has problems. Like, she's not a normal person. And but this job agrees with her. She's a happy person. You know, and you know, it fits. It's right for her, you know, given her limitations in life, you know. And yet she's surrounded by people, right, who puzzle about her life and do the normal thing, like,
married and
exactly, right, you know what I mean? And yet she's doing the right thing for herself. She's living her best life in this sense. And so I like this, obviously, you know, I mean, I'll let you say it, like, you know, why? So why did you say this fits better for the solo?
Yeah. So it really comes down to that the virgin, right? The virgin protagonist has to make a choice to stop listening to these outside voices that are trying to make them conform. And they have to choose, they have to give up. One of the moments in the archetypical journey is to give up what has kept her stuck, right? And doing that maybe puts everyone else around them in chaos, right? Because they're like, what do you mean? If you're not this, then who am I? And like, it breaks their mind, right? And they can't understand it. But by doing that, by giving up what keeps them stuck, and by choosing her own light, like her own path and her own magic that she has, that is really what reorders the kingdom around her, and it makes the world brighter. Like, the world is better when you choose your authentic path that is true to you, regardless of what anyone else is saying. You know, within wisdom and reason, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's what the world needs, right? Like, that's self-actualization. That's you bringing your gift to the world. And so I was thinking about this because I'm not a solo person, right? And I was thinking about this, and maybe this is ridiculous, but I was like, you know what? Me being married is like an enabling constraint, like, in a way, because I need things to be decided. Like, I think, so to me, I had this idea that, like, if you were going to get married or you were going to stay single, either way, like, just making the decision and having it, once it's done and over with, and not just being in this like muddled mess in the middle going, I don't know what I'm going to do. And always looking on the look for what's next, you know, who, I don't know. And just constantly being in that liminal space of what am I doing with myself? It's like, pick a path and fucking own that path, right? Yeah. And just do that path. And so, so I know for myself, and like being... You
mean like start a podcast called Solo?
Yeah, fucking own it, right? Right? Yeah, I'm sure you were never going to anyway, but yeah, you can't get married now. It's your brand, man.
I'm pretty safe.
I think so. But anyway, I've been having this sort of thought going around in my head about, like, man, I just know for me and a lot of my married friends were like, oh, thank God we don't have to think about it anymore. Like, just that idea of like it being undecided, I think can be so Dutch. It takes too much brain space. So I think even just, you know, listening to your podcast and, you know, just knowing that you're dating or do whatever you're doing, I'm like, oh God, that sounds so terrifying and exhausting. I never want to do that again.
That's funny. But, you know, I mean, the flip, but I think like the idea, first of all, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
But for me, when I started to declare a strong word, but
no,
you know,
it's a
declare.
Great word. It's a great
yeah.
word
When
for
I started to declare
yeah.
that I wasn't going to be married with children,
Mm-hmm.
and I would announce that with authority,
Mm-hmm.
you know, unapologetically.
Yes.
Yet compassionately to my dates and to other people.
Mm-hmm.
It was truly liberating.
Yes.
It was truly, you know, because I was living my most authentic self. Like it wasn't something I was wondering about, doubting. It wasn't something that I was hiding away because I was afraid I was going to scare someone away, and I was kind of kicking that can down the road that I was going to have that conversation later.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing about it was I really feel like I started to flourish.
Yes.
Even in my dating life.
Yes.
That's the irony, right? So it wasn't that I just had like my identity I started becoming more comfortable with my identity. I think a lot of solo people can appreciate that when you just go, you know, oh, this is how I am, like the convenience store woman.
Yeah.
Who recognizes that the way she's living her life is a good life given her limitations. That, you know, and then of course the idea is that the world around you is going to resist this declaration. You know, and so that's, I think, a really right in the same way that like Billy Elliot's world around him resisted his aspirations to dance, his desire to dance. It is, you know, people, and I'm going to tease our bonus material, right? Because so Kim and I, in our bonus material, she's going to talk about how non-solos, people who are partnered, married people, can remove that, can kind of support solos, right? So that there's not the natural pressure that builds up as occurs in the Virgin's Promise. As Kim writes down one of her ideas that she just
scribble. No, I think everything you're saying is so great and so fantastic, because it really, and even as you say it, and even, you know, as I joke around about like, oh God, I never want to date again. But I think if you once you make that, like you're saying, you owning it, you're giving up what's keeping you stuck, you're declaring it, you're putting it out into the world, and you know who you are, and you're going forward in that. Honestly, like it would make everything so much easier. Like I can feel that, right? I can feel like how it would be like, oh, well, I'm just here to connect with super cool people. If you want to connect as a super cool person, that's awesome, right? And there's no, all the stress is just gone. Like you don't have to win anybody over ever again. And like,
I'll give you an example.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I'll give you an example of this. Even, I mean, I've talked about this, that I launched this podcast with some trepidation, which obviously suggests, you know, the pressures in the world, that you're going against the status quo. A good friend of mine, Darwin Metzger, he's in the Tips for Solo Entrepreneurs episode. He's an incredibly creative thinker. He just pays attention to everything. He had made an introduction via email, and I have this autoresponder on my email right now because I'm doing a sabbatical from my sabbatical.
Yes.
Oh, you've seen it.
Yeah, I have seen it.
It's like
my favorite is, if it's an emergency, I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, okay, well, luckily mine's not an emergency, but yeah.
Yeah, I have my autoresponder says, big day. I'm taking a sabbatical from my sabbatical. I'm checking email sporadically, indefinitely, or something like that.
Yeah, I'm off the internet until Friday, but I think it's been on like that for about 3 weeks now. So
I've changed it to indefinitely. And I mean, I still check my email. I just am doing it less frequently.
Yeah, and you don't want people to, don't want them to rely on it, right? Like, you'll hear from me when you hear from me.
If this is an emergency, I don't know what to tell you. And so, but he says to me, he sends me an email. He gets that autoresponder. He sends me a text, and it says, why don't you have solo in your signature?
Yeah.
Because I have Stick to Business. I have my book.
Right. That's really good. Good.
And I was like, you are absolutely right.
Right.
Like,
own that shit, Pete. Like, that's so important.
Thank you, Kim.
Yes. I love it.
Okay. So this is, I see why the model works, right? So the solo person is living in this world that is not friendly to solo living,
right,
can be hostile, at the very least is inquisitive, is
right,
looks
right.
down on it and finds it puzzling and strange. Why would you want to do that?
Right, right.
Yet, some people have this promise inside, this potential inside, to take advantage of the opportunities, the time, the money, the resources, the energy to do things that are different.
Yes. Yes.
Great.
So I want to point out a couple, that I think are just helpful differences. And Kim Hudson points these out in the book between the hero's journey and the Virgin's Promise, because I think sometimes like comparing and contrasting, it can make things just sharpen right into focus. So here's a couple little things. So, okay, so although both of them must learn to stand alone, right? The Virgin story is about knowing her dream for herself and bringing it to life while surrounded by the influences of her kingdom. Now, the hero is about facing mortal danger by leaving his village and proving that he can exist in the larger world. Okay, so the Virgin shifts her values over the course of the story to be fully herself in the world. And the hero is focused on developing his skills to actively do things that need to be done in the world. The Virgin is about self-fulfillment and the hero is about self-sacrifice. Let's see. So they represent the two driving forces in humans when faced with challenges, propelled towards joy of being in harmony with yourself, which is, guess what, the Virgin's Promise, and driven away from fear to face hardship and conquer it bravely. That's the hero's journey. So propelled towards joy or driven away from fear. So both of those, that's kind of, again, we're talking just different sides of the human equation, right?
Yeah, and I like that idea, though. I see why you say it fits. It intuitively already fits from the very beginning. You don't have to thrust yourself out in the world. You're making a change in your own world. You're surrounded by the people who who may be pushing against you or supporting you. And I like the idea that you are pursuing joy rather than conquering fear.
Yes. And one thing that just kind of strikes me as interesting is that so many of these stories, right, are about, stories about women who stay home, who are, taking care of domestic affairs while heroes are out slaying dragons and being brave and conquering their fears. And so just, in the idea of like staying home or, just keeping the kingdom going, the home fires burning, so to speak, right? Keeping the home fires burning and making sure that your own fire is burning as well, right? So the same story for the person who's solo applies to the stay-at-home parent, right? Like, don't let the light go out in you as you're doing these things that need to be done. And so it's just interesting to me that, it's not about any one thing. It's just about, are you being authentic to yourself? Are you expressing yourself fully, or are you afraid of, so it's interesting too. Okay. Just the idea that, you have to be brave enough to show yourself and take what's the word? Custody is not the word, but of your own joy, right? Like you have to ownership or whatever, right? You have to own your own experience and joy, and in the face of
I like this. That. I agree with you that that in both cases you're having to be courageous.
Yes, right.
That to me, courage is not about slaying dragons.
Right.
Right. Courage is about vulnerability.
Absolutely.
And so yes, courage can involve slaying dragons because you put yourself at risk. But it doesn't have to be physical risk to be courageous. And I actually think like this is where I think a lot of men fail.
Yes.
Is that they think of courage in these physical heroic sense of the word, of running into burning buildings and so on. They don't recognize that courage is about vulnerability, which is about being your true self, asking for what you need, expressing that you're scared, whatever that might be. That's there.
And that is part of the really tragic story about soldiers, right? Is that you send them out into these horrific experiences and have them be brave and, tell them that, no fear and just go, go, go. And then they come back, right? They come back and they're not allowed to be vulnerable. And so they can't express all the stuff that they carry with them now. And they have to, so it's like, so PTSD and all these things, it's almost like they fall into a dependent world at home. Like, okay, stay brave. Now that you're home, stay brave. Don't fall apart on me now. Like, I need you to, be the man and all that stuff.
Yes.
And so it's kind of interesting just to think about, they go on this sort of heroic journey of going to war or whatever, and then coming home and then being shoved right into a dependent world and like just squashed in that way.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, I think it's especially painful so obviously it's painful when men don't recognize it. And then I think it's also painful when women don't recognize it and they reinforce it.
Absolutely.
Right? So
and that's the thing, right? That we're constantly, women are reinforcing the damaging aspects of masculinity as much as men are about, patriarchy or whatever, all this crap that every person is up against. It's all stuff that's stuck in our brains and we just keep perpetuating it. It's just mind-boggling.
It's really tough. Yeah. Like, so when, when a woman tells a man that he needs to man up.
Yeah.
Right. It's
completely unhelpful.
it's not helping the man and it's not helping the woman.
No.
Either. Yeah. It's a tough situation.
Right. Human up, right? Show your humanity, please.
Yes, that's right. Like it's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's an act of courage to be vulnerable. Like I talk to men and women about this all the time. And I say, have you asked for what you want? Like you can't leave it up to the other person to assume.
Yeah.
Like you have to ask for what you want.
Pretty much every relationship issue on the planet, I think, can be boiled down to that statement. Have you asked for what you want? Right?
Yes.
No, because I'll be rejected or whatever, right? Well,
you're never going to get what you want if you don't ask for it.
Yeah.
And you're never going to give your partner or whoever it is, doesn't have to be partner, whatever the relationship is, a chance, to give it to you if you don't ask for it. And you're vulnerable when you ask for it because you might not get it.
Right.
Right. You might not get it. And so, okay. So where were we? At what stage are we at? So you said there's this tease, so to speak.
With the opportunity to shine. And then kind of the crossing the threshold kind of moment in a Virgin's Promise story is dresses the part. And so this one is pretty fun because it can be a couple different things. Sometimes it's, maybe receives like goes through a makeover, right? Like you'll see a lot of the makeover montages that you see in movies, right? Maybe they receive a physical object, they participate in some sort of fashion show, and sometimes they undress, right? So they take something off. So the one that I wanted to point out for this was if you think about the story Frozen, it's her taking off her gloves, right? She's not, because her dependent world. So Elsa's dependent world is in the price of conformity for her is when she has to put those gloves on, right? So she puts the gloves on. I have a feeling you haven't seen Frozen, Pete. Your face is telling me you haven't seen it. Okay. It's okay. You're going to go watch it.
I'm the only one though, so you don't do anything special for me.
No, I highly doubt it. But
listening has heard it.
Everyone's heard it. So Elsa has magical powers, right? Her sister knows it. They've grown up knowing it together, right? Until Elsa accidentally hurts her sister Anna because Anna was playing too wild and Elsa couldn't control it and accidentally hits her in the head with her ice powers and knocks her out. So then they're able to get Anna healed. But then what they do is they make it where Anna does not remember that Elsa has powers. And her father says, put on these gloves, and it's, conceal it, don't feel it, don't let it show. Like that's the quote that her dad says when he gives her these gloves. And they're like just little kids, right? So then they basically spend years and years and years. Now they used to share a bedroom, now they don't. Elsa stays in her room all the time behind a closed door. Like the price of conformity is painstakingly clear in this story, right? Of what it looks like to just be locked up. You've got all this stuff inside of you, but you're afraid it's going to hurt other people, so you just keep it to yourself, right? So
I hope we're not going to cause some divorces because of this.
I just want people to self-actualize. I said it last episode. Whatever it takes for you to self-actualize, and your partner, friend, sister, mother, father to self-actualize. Like, I'm all push those buttons, man. I'm all about it. We're here to manifest change.
Yes. Okay. All right. As you're talking about this, I'm like,
you can feel it, right? It just
right?
it just sits as this weight on your chest about like what you have to be to, I don't know, to meet other people's expectations.
To be yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so she takes these gloves off.
Yes. So there's an accident. So she gets curved. The parents die, of course, and then she's crowned queen of their, Arendelle's, their kingdom or whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's a big party, and it's the first party they've had in forever because they keep the gates to the kingdom closed. Like they don't talk with anybody. So they invite all these people. There's this big party. And during that time, which, okay, this is totally an aside. And this is partly why I really want you to nerd out and watch Frozen, because Elsa is the quintessential solo person. Okay. She's solo in the first film and she's solo in the second film. Like she is she is this person, right? She is a perfect example of a solo protagonist. And even more so in the second story, like the sequel or whatever. And Anna is is the sister, and she doesn't have magical powers. But her problem is in the first one, she wants to meet the first man. She wants to marry the first man that she meets. Like they want to get married like that. And Anna's like, Elsa's like, you can't marry a man that you just meet. And she's like, but it's true love and da. So Elsa's basically telling her, you cannot get married to this man. And Anna is so upset that she pulls off her glove, and Elsa accidentally uses her powers again and being really frustrated. So then everybody in the kingdom knows that she has these powers, and she's just mortified. And so she runs away. So anyway, sorry, I really suck at summarizing. Like, I get stuck on the detail. I'm watching the movie in my head and I'm telling you all these details. My husband teases me because he's like, you know what? It's probably faster if I just watch the movie.
Watch the movie.
I apologize. It all matters to me and I can't separate it. Anyway.
It's okay.
So what's awesome though, and what we see is then, Elsa leaves and she goes up on the snowy hill and she starts just like, using her powers freely. And this is where you sing the Let It Go song, okay? Which I'm sure you've heard whether you like it or not. So she sings a song and she takes off the other glove. She's just like, fuck it. I'm taking off the glove. I'm taking off this cape. And I'm just like using all my powers. She builds herself this giant, snow castle, ice castle thing. And she pulls her hair down, rather than being all like up in a bun. Like, so she really like shows up.
She
transforms herself with her own powers. She changes her dress, all of this stuff. Yeah.
So is this, I like the fact that Frozen and Rocky have similarities here.
I know. Isn't it amazing?
So in Rocky, is it the training montage? That might be that. I know in one of the Rockies he gets he
gets this Italian stallion.
Is that what it is? The robe. He gets
that. He doesn't get the robe until right before he goes on stage, I think. So that's
and one of them he gets when in Rocky 3. Mm-hmm. In Rocky 3, I think Creed gives him the Stars and Stripes shorts at one point.
Oh, okay. So,
but I may be pushing this a little too far.
No, it's all because sometimes what we see, what's really interesting is, and again, not to totally nerd out, but there's something actually called an anti-virgin story, which is basically the reluctant virgin, right? It's someone who like people might want to like, come on, be yourself. And they're like, no, I don't want to. The 40-year-old virgin is an example of that. And Mamma Mia is also an example of this sort of anti-virgin story where, they're being encouraged.
I love that the 40-year-old virgin is an anti-virgin.
An anti-virgin story, exactly. It's hilarious. You can't make this shit up,
That's right. And so in Cinderella, I'm assuming the ball is.
Yes, right. So she gets.
Moment.
It's gonna be the fairy godmother transforms her, right? So her shining. So if we step back one step, her opportunity to shine was that she made her own dress that then the stepsisters destroy. But then the fairy godmother shows up and says, well, how about this? Right. And it transforms her and gives her this dress. And she steps into the secret world by going to the ball in disguise, right? No one knows who she is. So,
okay. That's great. I'm making note. I'm making copious notes here.
I love it. I love it.
I actually have had people, I had a woman text me for the ethical non-monogamy episode.
Yes.
She's like, I'm taking notes as I'm listening to this.
It's so fantastic.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes. So fantastic.
Okay. All right. So they're coming out into the world. They have the idea of how they look changes in some dramatic way. They add something, they take something, there's a makeover.
Oh, I was going to point out the moment for Rocky is, in this case, it's an anti-virgin. He's reluctant to express his true self, and he actually dresses for the wrong part. So it's when they go to the press conference with Juergens and Creed, and he dresses it the wrong way, and they make fun of him for it. So in this case, it's him not really knowing how to be, right? What to do.
Yeah, he's not ready for
prime time yet, right?
Prime time, yeah.
Yeah. So so then from here we step into our secret world, and this is where, it's like they're able to explore their gift without people watching. So this is the training montage for Rocky. He's doing it in secret. No one sees him. No one knows what he's doing, right? He's hitting the meat. He's doing his running really early in the morning where nobody sees him, right? And then this is, Elsa up making her ice castle and playing. She's just doing all of this amazing stuff. And then this
is the Solo listening to
Solo.
To this podcast.
and mom goes, oh, what else? Nothing. Just, exactly. And so they're able to kind of explore their secret world until there's a moment that says that they no longer fit in the dependent world. And this is where, that the protagonists, they have to kind of keep this balancing act going between their secret world and their dependent world until it kind of starts to unravel, and they no longer fit. They attract attention, or they get reckless or confused, or something happens. So in this case with Rocky, it's he gets in a fight with Polly. He no longer fits with Polly. He no longer fits with Gazzo, his boss, being his loan shark. So, or his muscle, right, for the loan shark business. So basically it's like, recognizing that you just don't, your old crowd, you don't fit in with them anymore. And you're starting, because you've let yourself explore your gift so much that now it's starting to create a gap that you can't compensate for. And so I don't know, you can imagine, I went through this myself just when I switched careers, right? Like you have your old friends that you were friends at work and you just did all kinds of stuff together. And then, you leave work. I left my job, but you still kind of maintain, you maintain these relationships and friendships, and you miss them and all this stuff. But then as I started to really go down the rabbit hole of story and getting client and becoming an entrepreneur and whatever, like the gap forms. And I remember trying to go do like mommy at the park stuff with other people that I used to be able to go do that stuff with, and it was no big deal. And I'm like, I can't have another one of these goddamn conversations. Like I just can't. Like it was all of a sudden, all of the things I wanted to talk about, they knew absolutely nothing about, and everything they were talking about, I could have cared less. I mean, I love my kids, but I wanted to talk about something else, like I had ideas and all this stuff. And so anyway, I just know that sometimes when you're growing and other people aren't, or they're growing in a different direction than you can really start to feel that distance. And I think that's what this is. That's what this moment really feels like.
I see. Okay, that's great.
So then this brings us to the next moment, which is caught shining. So this is where, it's the moment when the worlds collide. Like you start to feel the pressure, right? You're in your secret world. Then you start to realize, oh, this is not going to last. It's kind of the, you don't fit. And then there's going to be a moment when you're caught shining and you can't keep it separate anymore. You grow too big. You're recognized by the dependent world. You've been betrayed. It depends on the story exactly how it plays out.
Yeah, I have some vague recollection in Billy Elliot. There's some moment where he's dancing and...
Yeah, he gets caught. I think his dad probably even shows up at some point because, oh, you know what it is? Because the boxing coach goes, hey, when's Billy going to come back? And it's like, oh, whoopsies. Right. So then dad shows up and realizes what's going on and brings him home and says, you can't go back. Right. And so,
yes, right.
And so, so for Rocky, this is when Polly surprises Rocky by setting up an interview with a local reporter at the meatpacking plant. Creed's trainer watches him and realizes that Rocky's serious about the fight. And so this is where now he's in public. His private world has become public.
I see.
And now all eyes are on him, and you can't hide it anymore, right?
Right.
So,
you know what I think is really cool? I part of the reason I keep coming back to Rocky is because I know it so well. Like, you know, I mean, I was 10 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe I was even probably even younger when it came out. But and I think people forget this. He doesn't win the fight.
He doesn't win the fight. I know. It's the best part of the whole freaking story is that he knows he's not going to win. He knows he's not going to win.
He just wants to survive.
Yeah, and he's like, I can't win, but I can go 15 rounds, and nobody else can go 15 rounds, but I can. That's his gift, right? But in the beginning, I have
goosebumps right now.
I know. I get so excited about it. And I was just reading about it earlier. I was catching myself up on my Rocky knowledge. Was that Sylvester Stallone had to fight to keep that scene in about him telling Adrian, I can't win this fight. And the whole story is like sits on that scene is the whole freaking story.
You know, it could never get made today.
Right. It's too slow at the beginning. The inciting, it's totally, I know.
I know. I mean, like everybody, he has to win. You know what I mean? All the rest of them, he wins.
Right.
But the idea, though, of course, is he doesn't need to win.
Yeah.
To fulfill his promise, his potential.
Exactly. Like he gets to show he's no longer a bum. It's not just about winning. I don't just have to go against, against guys that are not as good as me, right? So, because before it was all about winning, and that means he had to go against weaker opponents than him to make sure that he won in, first round, second round, third round. But really what he's all about, he's endured a hard life. Rocky can take a punch. He can take a beating and he can get back up again. That's what he's been proving to us. His whole life is that story, right? And so his gift is about endurance against a stronger opponent. It's not about winning. It's about lasting, right? It's just about showing up again and again and again, taking a punch and getting up again. And so he realizes that he can't win, and he decides, I'm going in that ring anyway. And this is I'm going to not nerd out about it in story grid terms because it will not be helpful to any other person. But basically, it's about him changing his definition of success, going from like an unachievable definition of success that says, I must win against Apollo Creed, that says, I'm going to go 15 rounds against the champ, something that no one else has ever done. It doesn't matter if I lose. I just have to keep getting up again. And I'm built to do that. So that's his gift. And he just shows up and he shines, and it's amazing. And it doesn't even matter that he didn't win because he freaking won, right? Like he won. Great. So anyway, Rocky's a badass. He shows up with his gifting, and that's all we want anyone to do, right? Like figure out what that thing is, figure out what's keeping you smaller than you're supposed to be, what's keeping you dim, what's keeping you dependent and bound and all that stuff, and give it up and step out. Great. Yeah.
And okay, so in Frozen, Cinderella, Billy Elliot, this moment. So tell me again, what exactly is this moment?
So let's see. We're talking about the giving up what's kept them stuck moment. Is specifically what Rocky's doing when he decides, oh, I can't win, but I can go 15 rounds. Like when he realizes this, he gives up his cost of conformity. It's no longer about winning. It's about doing the best that I can. And it's pretty great, right? Like, so that's really what's kept him stuck. And so, it's really like when you stop letting the conformity of the mold of the dependent world, when you kind of like,
this came up I may be the worst at this, that I keep referring back to other podcasts. It's the only podcast I know that I refer to previous episodes, or that people do, but I can't help myself. There's an episode with Lisa Slavitt called Lisa's Second Mountain. And Isabella Amani, who is my guest co-host, brings up something that I think people overlook in the book, The Four Agreements.
Yes.
And I forget the author's name. Forgive me.
I'll look it up while you're
Sorry.
chatting. No, it's such a powerful. We use it in the adoption world, in open adoption, the Four Agreements. So yes. It's just powerful. It's so powerful. So
the Four Agreements, a lot of people know them. They're really an outstanding sort of guidepost, I think, for life. But I think what people often overlook is this, what he calls human domestication. And the idea is this is, so as a child, the world shapes you. Your parents chastise you for misbehaving. They get upset when you say no. They want you to say yes and agree with them and do these things. And, television tells you should, this is how you should behave and this is what you should do, right? Like you become domesticated the way, we have domesticated farm animals and, and you get put in a cage and so on. And he talks about how the Four Agreements can help you release you from that domestication, which I think is really
that's so really so great. That idea of domestication, of taking all the wild out of you, right? Like just be, just do what we need you to do.
Just get married, have kids,
please. Yes.
Buy the house, the white picket fence.
Yes.
Right? Like.
Get a job, get a 401k, work until you get a pension, like da-da-da-da-da. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting in the book that I've been reading, this Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, in the interview, Campbell and the interviewer, Bill Moyers, laments the change away from heroes being heroes to celebrities being heroes. So, the argument is 100 years ago, you ask a young person, what do you want to be? They'll tell you a hero, whoever that would be, in a particular time period or thing. Now you ask a young person, what do you want to be? They say Kim Kardashian or
some, in my house would be whoever their favorite YouTuber is right now, which just, I'm like, I don't care if you watch TV, but it better be a fucking story. If I have to watch someone playing a game, like, no, there's no real content there. Like, watch a movie. Go watch a movie.
And so what I love about the hero's journey or the Virgin's Promise, in both cases, right, there's this sort of transformation where someone is becoming a better version of themselves, but they're doing it for themselves.
Yeah.
They're not doing it for the accolades.
Right.
They're not doing it for the clicks or the likes or anything like that.
Right.
That, I think, is a powerful idea.
Clicks and likes, that's dependent world. That's you dependent on them. Wow. They're dependent on you. Like you're not being like, think about any artist, right? Anyone who creates anything. Are you making it from a place of, I have to make this and this matters, or are you trying to meet the market demand? Like, I know there's some, you know what I mean, right? Like, let me make this made to order and let me do the next, shallow blockbuster or whatever, right?
Yes.
Versus like something that maybe not everybody will love, right? Fucking create a chasm, right? Like from shtick to business, right? So so more people are trying to play it safe. The Virgin is all about creating that chasm, right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you try to make everyone happy, you're not going to making yourself happy.
Yeah,
right?
Probably no one else either.
No one else. Yeah,
not really, right?
Yeah.
Just a quick, the book, The Four Agreements, A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom is Don Miguel Ruiz.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. I'll put it in the exhibits again. Okay, so let's talk about these moments for Frozen, Cinderella, Billy Elliot.
Okay, so let's think about what gives up what kept her stuck. See, I'm gonna have to think for a second. So in Cinderella, Okay, so in Cinderella, this is really when okay, let me back up actually. Okay, so in Cinderella, if we back up to the moment when she's caught shining, this is when the evil stepmother, right, figures out who she is. She hears her singing or whatever happens, and she realizes it's the same, that she's the person that they saw at the ball, right? So she's basically, the secret's out, right? There's no more, there's no hiding it anymore. And she gets locked in the tower, right? So, so it seems like in this moment when Cinderella stops following orders, right? When she gets like her little mice friends or whatever, right? And depending on which story you're watching, they unlock the door and she has to come downstairs and go, I have the other slipper, right? Like this is her saying, I have the other slipper. And that's going against what her stepmother has said. And she's going to actually show that her stepmother is a liar in front of the Duke. Right? Like, so this is her, she's followed the order. She's played nice this whole time. She does everything that they ask, gets them breakfast, does all their laundry, blah, blah, blah. She had this one special night and she's like, oh, maybe it'll only be this night. And then she realizes that, oh my God, I have a chance. Like that's my slipper. I have a chance. Right. And then, but she's going to have to speak up. She's going to have to say, she's going to have to own her identity and say, I'm the woman who was wearing the slipper. That was me. Let me have a turn and go against what her stepmother was saying. And basically it gets shown that her stepmother is a liar, right? Like just speaking out. Oh my God. Speaking out against what your mother thinks. Like, oh, that's a whole nother podcast, but like, it's intense. It's intense for a woman. And maybe it's first for a son too, but for a daughter, for sure. It's a whole thing,
I think, I think there's a reason that most of the single focused books, other podcasts out there, whatever it is, are typically female focused. I think it's just a lot. I think when you're that person around Thanksgiving dinner table, I think it's harder on the ladies.
Yeah. Well, I think even in the language, and maybe we said this before on the podcast, or maybe we've just said it when we're having a regular conversation, but even the language, right? A bachelor is cool. An old maid, right? You're a spinster. Yes. You're an old maid. The language. It's even the language, right? Like there's something wrong with you, right? Where, bachelor's is cool and you can't tie him down, right? Like he's just, like it's just different.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. This is spinsters is almost wholly negative, and a bachelor's at least like mixed. There's some positive sides seen to it that's there, and there's a little bit more. It feels a little more choice-like. But so to your point, you're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner for the X year in a row. Is there someone special in your life? When are you going to settle down? When are you going to have kids? When are you going to do this thing? And to say, I don't think I'm ever going to do that.
Yep.
Like, and then just sit with it and let.
And that leads us to our next moment, which is the kingdom in chaos. And that's everyone around you can't handle it. They can't handle the truth. And they're going, but why? But what do you mean? Oh, or they'll totally belittle what you just said, right? And they'll go, oh, you just wait. Just all your time. And when you meet someone and blah, blah. I mean, it could be it could be about, wanting to be a writer for a living, or about being solo, or about insert any, it applies to all these things. But we're specifically
being a dancer
in a blue collar, mining town, or, So, and I think your ability to ride out the chaos, right? That's where you have to steel yourself against compromise at that moment, right? To say, like, okay, so if we think about Rocky, right? Really, like, in this case, it's Paulie is really the representative here about, he could fall back into, you're right, like to kind of come back down and play at his level, right? Like and just he has to rise above that kind of stuff. I think, in this case, if we think about,
it's the you're getting too big for your britches moment.
Exactly. Like you've declared it, right? Like you've declared it, like you were caught shining and you freaking own it. And you go, yeah, I am. I shine a lot. I'm really bright. You just like own it. And then they can't handle it. And they're going to try to pull you back in. And it leads us to the next moment, which is the wanders in the wilderness moment of doubt. And like, I don't know, like, should I go back? Like, well, and there's all of this stuff that you're going to wrestle with until you get to the next moment, which is where you choose your light. So she chooses her light. And this is really where, even after you've been caught out and even after they've tried to pull you back in and you've wrestled with it and you go, nope, this is it. And you make your kind of final ultimatum. No, Mom, I'm not getting married, but I love you and I still am your daughter and blah, blah, blah. And I still have value and I'm going to have an amazing life and all of these amazing things. And
remarkable life.
Remarkable life.
As an aside, I've mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. I chose the word remarkable very carefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's the kind of life that people talk about. They remark about your life.
And it leaves a mark, it feels like too. Like,
yeah, I think that this could have been the single person's guide to a great life, a good life,
fulfilling life, right?
Fulfilling life, an amazing life, or whatever. But
but
there's something about
that. Yeah,
that.
it's great. It's a great word.
Yeah, it's underused.
It is underused.
It also has it isn't wholly positive.
Yeah,
right?
That's so good.
Right?
Good.
Things can be remarkably bad at times. You know what I mean? Remarkable things can, you know what I mean? But the point about it is that it's noticeable.
It's worth talking about. Yeah.
But it leans positive. You know what I mean? When you hear
might not be wholly popular, right?
That's exactly
which
right.
is fantastic. Yeah. Yes. That's so good.
I can imagine. Okay, I have to make a note. Sorry. Sorry, listeners, as we nerd out and make notes.
Insert.
I do love all of you.
Music
Thank you
right here
for your patience. Okay, please go on.
Okay, so ultimately, this is really the climax of the story, right? Is the choosing her light, and so this really is. You can imagine, so in Billy Elliot, right, this is, Billy shows up he does the audition, right? He does the audition and he answers his questions honestly to the interview board or whatever, after he just tried to sabotage himself by hitting someone in the locker room, right? Like he tries to, it's that sort of his wandering the wilderness moment is he's thinking, oh, I've really screwed it up, and then we find out that he makes it. And then he has to accept it again, right? He has to say, yeah, I'm going, and leave home and actually go to this school. And then what that leads us to is it reordering, right? So what I love about this is the reordering of the kingdom is so amazing because it's like when you set out to self-actualize in the Virgin's Promise story, right? You're doing it for your own fulfillment. And that's really your job is just to focus on making sure you're fulfilled. But by you living your best, most remarkable life, it actually makes the people around you better. It makes the kingdom brighter. It makes people, I wonder, well, maybe Mom at the, hypothetical Thanksgiving table, by you owning your light, maybe she stands up for something that she wants to do more, like by seeing an example. Or maybe she's less hard on maybe a younger sister when she comes up and wants to do something different. Insert any story that you want, but you can see how if you can just show up and be strong in your identity and own it with compassion and kindness and grace, right?
Yes.
And maybe be a little mouthy too, because that never hurt anybody. So, when you do that, it actually makes other people, you become a mentor for others to show hey, they are living a solo life, or they are, they've left this conventional path.
Career stuff comes to mind.
Absolutely.
I have this conversation with students, especially my undergrad students, a lot about, well, yes, Mom and Dad want you to be an accounting major, but what do you want to be?
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
And then you actually become a better son or daughter.
Yeah.
As a result of that, because you're going to be happier.
There's no bitterness, right? Yeah. You just release them. Yeah. You release yourself from conforming, and you release them too, right? It's really so much healing happening, which makes me really happy. You know, like great. It's just really good for people. And yeah, so there's a reordering, and then the kingdom is brighter. And so what I love, so if we think about Billy Elliot, right? Oh my God, the last scene of Billy Elliot is just so freaking amazing. It's the father and the son, or no, the brother, right? So the father and the brother, they're, you know, it's been however many years later, Billy is a grown man, right? And they're going to watch him perform, and they just give you like, they just show you like a blip of what he looks like. And you just feel it in your chest. Like, he is freaking amazing. And you can see it on their faces too, when they watch him like do this black swan. I think that's what they're doing. You know, he's like dancing this black swan, and it's just like, they're different. They look at what men can be different. They look at people, you know, just all of it just shifts their own perspective. They have a worldview change, and they allow other people to be who they need to be, and hopefully they're a little bit kinder to themselves as well, right? It's good for everybody.
And so Frozen, since I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah. Okay. So Frozen.
Ruin it for me.
Okay. So let's see. So there's all kinds of stuff, but let's get really to, I'm like, summarize, Kim, go faster. So really in the end, what happens is it's so great because Anna sacrifices herself to save Elsa, right? It's just, it's so beautiful. It's so funny because the story is not even all that great. Okay. I'm totally saying, like, from a storytelling perspective, there's a lot that feels like it's missing in the film. But there's some really, it's like what is working is working so well that it kind of ends up compensating for these other things. Okay. So there's a saying that happens is that an act of true love can thaw a frozen heart. Okay. So what ends up happening is Elsa accidentally freezes Anna's heart during probably the caught shining moment, right? Let's say something like that. And so Anna is slowly freezing to death and like turning to ice, right? Like her hair is going white, all this stuff's happening. And there's a moment when she can choose between running to Kristoff to get like a true love's kiss kind of moment, or she can save Elsa from the bad guy who's going to hit her with a sword or whatever. So she goes and she gets in front of her and she turns to ice, totally solid, just as the sword's coming down, and the sword breaks against her and Elsa's saved. Everybody knows this guy's the bad guy, so he can be taken away. But she freezes to death. So she's definitely, it's like she has like a hero's journey sort of happening. Anna kind of is more like this heroic role that she's learning about sacrifice and learning to see things a little differently and not just, you know, marry the first man that you meet kind of thing. And Elsa's kind of going through a virgin's promise. So what's so great is the fact that you have these sisters and they're both kind of taking their journeys are so different, but they get to happen on the same stage and you kind of get to see them be themselves. And it's super cool. It's super cool. As a mother of girls, right? I've got 2 daughters, and even my son too. I mean, it's so great to see those two sort of play out, the solo and the non-solo person, a heroic journey and a virgin's promise. Like, anyway, it's just nerdy cool stuff. So that happens. Anna freezes to death, and then, but she herself did an act of true love by saving Elsa rather than herself. So her own heart thaws, right?
I see.
And she
it's
comes
Disney.
back. It's Disney. It's beautiful, right? It's so metaphorical. I just love it. So then in that moment, because they realize love thaws a frozen heart, Elsa realizes this whole time she's basically, her own fear of her own gifting and what other people are going to do has made the entire kingdom frozen, right? It was the middle of summer and now everything's just frozen solid. The fjord is frozen. That's been the big problem this whole time. And she doesn't know how to unfreeze it because she can't be afraid. She can't stop being afraid. And then she realizes that love can thaw and she has the power to unthaw everything because she has love. So she just embraces her own power and she thaws everything. She fixes everything. And now she no longer has to be afraid of people of her own. She's no longer afraid of her own power. Other people don't have to be afraid of it, and she can control it and she can do whatever she needs to do. And everyone reconciles. The kingdom's open. The sisters are together. They rule to get, like all this stuff happens. Anyway, but yeah, it's what I love about about Elsa's journey is that she's so afraid. She's been taught to be afraid of her own powers and that it's going to hurt other people. So she feels like she either has to hide it or like sequester herself away from others. And rather than, at the end, she learns to integrate, right? And be a part of a community, even if other people are, she's the only one like her in her whole community, right? So.
Wow. Okay. So this is almost a perfect segue into our bonus material.
Hells yeah, it is. It is.
But before we kind of officially end and then come back for the bonus material, first of all, thank you, Kim, for doing this.
Hey, you're welcome.
This is really wild. Like
it is, right?
I mean, many of the topics that come up are things that I know a lot about.
Yeah.
And so and that's why part of the reason why I choose them, because I think that they're going to be useful. This one I knew almost nothing about. I did a little bit of homework since we last talked. So, I mean, yeah, I think that you are right.
Mm-hmm.
You're correct.
Mm-hmm.
This is a better model.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the hero's journey is not a useful model by which to think about making change in your life.
Right. Absolutely.
Or anything like that. But in terms of someone, so I always say for now or forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to be comfortable for now or forever is to accept the goodness of being single.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and to fulfill that promise and the potential for this time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 6 years, maybe it'll be 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you can do that, not only do you transform yourself by letting go, right?
Mm-hmm.
This act of courage to lean into this, but then you can actually transform the world around you.
Absolutely. There's something about, contentment and being present and all of those things, like just being that, knowing that you are enough, just being who you are is enough. And that you can just rest in that. Right. And that so much of the angst about, especially, those of us that are future driven, like we constantly are seeing the future, wanting to plan the future. And I will just live in the future in my head all the time.
Me too.
And it's so exhausting. So, even just in that, of just resting in for now and for today and in whatever way that makes sense, and apply it to your own story. But yeah, I just think that's so liberating that you can just release some of that.
One of the neat things about this is it may shake up the other world, but it doesn't diminish it. Like I think,
right.
Like I always say is, I'm not anti-marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's overprescribed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So I think that it's a perfect path for many people. I just don't believe it's the perfect path for 90% of people.
Right.
And so people pursuing their solo promise in no way diminishes the marriages of other people.
Well, and maybe I don't know. I think it applies, but even going through same-sex marriage, like getting legalizing same-sex marriage, and like really like doesn't affect anyone else's marriage. Like it's their marriage, right? Like it's literally their, like it does not diminish. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yes,
insert all the thoughts that I'm having because I get too worked up about it. Yeah. But like, I just think that is like the revelation that we want people to have, that like, not only you living your journey, not only is going to help other people, but if you can let other people live theirs, right? That is going to help you and them, right? Which is really the segue to.
Okay, so so I'm going to say, Kim, thanks so much. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
So we're going to wrap here and we'll come back for the bonus where Kim is going to tell my married partnered listeners how they can help the singles facilitate the virgin's promise. So thank you, Kim. Cheers.
Cheers.
We're back for a little bit of bonus material. Kim is still with me.
Hello.
And we had this perfect segue into how can partnered people facilitate the virgin's promise or the anti-virgin's promise, I guess, is depending on how you look at it. But basically, how do you break the normal script that happens around Thanksgiving dinner table and beyond?
Yeah. How can you support your solo friends and family, right?
Indeed.
So what comes to mind is first, believe them, right? Believe that they know best for their own freaking lives, right? And I mean, and again, man, this could really insert into a lot of different like ally conversations, right?
Yes.
Like believe that their experience is true and and just honor it, right? Just honor their experience and believe them. And in that, this part 2 of that is don't try to change their mind, right? You don't have to, and okay, I'll get to this one in a second. Yeah. Don't try to change their mind. Listen, right? Be excited for them. I think the language and the tone and the facial expressions that you use are really important, right? Just like, oh, okay, well, great. I'm so glad you figured that out, right? Like,
yes,
that's a really, it's a really easy thing to do, is to just believe someone, accept what they're saying, honor what they're saying, and don't try to change their mind. Just listen. Okay. So
I think that's
part 1.
That's part 1. I think that's great. I love that idea that because that decision has nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, like, I like that idea that like the immediate answer is, that's great. Right. Congratulations.
Yes.
Like, you've recognized something, I mean, like, so that this is a positive development. That someone has realized that this other path is a better one for them to walk.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So I think right along with that, right, is realizing it doesn't really have anything to do with you. So there's no need to get defensive. You don't have to defend your position about how you feel about this topic, or say, well, and don't look at it as a critique on you, or it has nothing to do with you. It has literally nothing to do with you. Right. And again, maybe this is kind of a bizarre analogy, but I think it's useful. Again, if we were talking about someone's sexual orientation, right? Like something that's they're born with, it's the way they are, right? If someone says, oh, well, I like women or I like men or whatever, you don't need to change them. Like, it doesn't change you at all. Like, it just literally affects you in no way other than you saying, man, I'm proud of you. I'm so glad that you figured that out, and I don't have to defend anything. Like,
yeah, I don't know if I should look this up. I have heard about some research that like the most homophobic men.
Yeah. Yes, I've heard the same. There's some tendency there. They're afraid. Like that is the anti-virgins story happening. There's something locked in there, and they don't want it to come out. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. But the behavior is multiply determined, so we should be a little bit careful. But my thing is this: is when someone says, I really don't like Italian food. I like Indian food, and the person goes, No. Italian food is the best food on the planet. You should be eating Italian food as much as possible.
Right?
Right? Like no one ever does that because it's ludicrous, right?
Right.
Like,
it doesn't make any sense. Well, and I think it's funny though. People do, I feel like people do that about, no, in fact, I've had that same argument about whether or not you should have pineapple on pizza. It totally went exactly. No, you absolutely should not, because, whatever the reasons were. And it became this all where I'm like, why do you care if I have pineapple on my pizza?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
So
like
whether
that.
it's food or what music you like or whether you think a movie is good or not, like, have your opinions. But in this case, it's so personal. You're talking about someone's being. Like, keep your fucking mouth shut, right? Like, can we just say, like, you don't need to say anything, and you don't need to be defensive. Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, because I think a lot of the times the people that really need to be the biggest ally is the solo person's parents, right?
Yeah.
So, and as a parent, I'm, and I would say for anyone listening, like, you can start early, right? My kids are 10, 6, and 4. And they know that they don't ever have to get married if they don't want to. They don't ever have to have babies if they don't want to. They don't have to do anything that they don't want to do. They could have babies and not be married. They can adopt babies. There's all kinds of things that you can do, right? So they get to make these choices. And in fact, my daughter once, she was like, I think I want to have a baby first and then get married later, right? Like she wants to like adopt a baby on her own, be a solo parent. And then, she had it all this other way. I'm like, my mom would just absolutely lose her mind if she knew this, but yeah, like we had talked about them as totally these separate things, and everybody makes different decisions. This is what I wanted to do, but you don't have to do that and whatever. So I think the idea of starting young, whether it's educating them about the choices they have for themselves or that other people might make, right? And again, this is just, to me, just good education of just saying there's a lot of different people in this world. Everybody's going to take their own path. They're going to find their own way. And our job is to love and accept them and empower them and help them be their best selves, whatever that looks like. So I like the idea of if you can start empowering your children young to make these choices, to have autonomy in their lives, just like you would about their career. Like you can be whatever you want when you grow up. Do you really mean it, right? Do you really, really mean it? Or do you only mean as long as your job is safe, secure, you're married, you have a house and a baby, and you live within driving distance from me? Like those are my prerequisites. But other than that, baby, anything you want, right? So I think that's really important.
Can I?
Yeah, please jump in. I'm getting impassioned as a parent, so go for it.
I think, first of all, my mom loved me quite a lot, and was largely proud of me for the things that I have done in life. Our relationship was fraught with conflict, in part because she was a very difficult person to get along with, and so she could be very manipulative and very controlling, but that came from a place of love, and it came from a place of her wanting the best life for me. So to keep me safe and to do all these things, but it was a struggle. I've learned to appreciate a lot of what she did, beyond the very difficult times with her. One of the things that she never did to me was she never pressured me to be married with children. Now, part of the reason for that was marriage and children didn't go very well for her. So she didn't really see it as the path, to use your word, self-actualization. She didn't see it as the path to happiness per se. So, she'd ask if I was dating someone or something like that, out of curiosity, but it never was that like, so is there anyone special? Like, right. I think in some ways she was in some ways concerned that would knock me off of a path that I was sort of thriving in, in academia, and I was living this very adventurous life, while she was alive. And I think she worried about me, but I think she was also she was super proud of it. Like she would write letters a lot, and she would address the letter Dr. Peter McGraw.
That's so fantastic.
Isn't that wonderful? Oh my God. I mean, that's just so great. And so, I never really appreciated it at the time. I couldn't have, because I hadn't sort of fully gone through my solo promise.
Yeah.
But she gave me a great gift by not leaning on me.
Yeah.
In that way, for whatever reason. So I've never thought about that until you just talked about that. So thank you, Kim.
Yeah. So I think that, in any way, whether it's about someone being solo or, whatever their experience is, I think part of our call as humans on this planet that we share together in the time that we're alive is to support other people's journey and realize that they exist outside of you, right? They're having their own experience, and you can still love them and support them from afar if needed, right? Like sometimes maybe it's easier, right? Maybe you won't be the best person to support them on this journey, but you can still love and support them from afar. Like those are good gifts.
Super. Do you have one more, or that's where I'm going to end there?
I think that's it.
Okay, perfect. I'm not going to add anything because I think you nailed it.
That's what I like to hear.
Yes, that was great. All right, I'm going to let you go be a mom and wife,
okay.
which you are doing I can tell, a great job at. But I will also say thank you for your support of not only the podcast, but also for my listeners.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. It feels good to help support you, and support solo people. And like I said, I just want people to show up with their gifts, man. I need their light. The world needs their light. So whatever it takes.
Thank you for listening to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. For more about our guests and show notes, go to petermcgraw.org. Please subscribe and share with your single friends.